You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today we have a special guest. Today we have Tyler Kania. He has a website, tylerkania.com, and guess what? He has a book that you need to check out. It's called The Maniac with No Knees. We're going to learn everything about his amazing story, and yes, he's holding a book for our visual, for YouTube. I can't wait to talk about his story because I think it's very important. He's a decorated rugby player who had aspirations to go pro. He had a situation that derailed his career, but you know what? It did not stop him. So first and foremost, Tyler, thank you for your time today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate you clearing the schedule to be on because you have a fascinating story. I mean, a lot of twists and turns, even including a cybersecurity startup. So let's unpack that first by sharing the audience a little bit about your professional background, because I think that ties into the story as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I think you really have to be if you're bipolar, especially if you've dealt with undiagnosed bipolar. You know, you burn bridges and you have to restart. You could have 2 or 3 years of really productive, working, and, you can just have that all get blown up in, one night, 2 nights. So, rugby was my first passion. I was a fly half, which is a lot like quarterback. You're in charge of the plays, the passing, the kicking. Won several championships with my college team. Got recruited to play with a bunch of professionals on a premier rugby team where there are, guys from Team USA and from other countries, playing alongside me. And yeah, rugby was going to be, what I did next. But, I had undiagnosed bipolar. I ruptured my patellar tendon. It's a very rare injury where your knee goes into your quad. It happens once for every 147,000 human years. And it's happened to me twice now. But the first time was the first incident where I actually showed symptoms of bipolar. I went manic, quit my job in cybersecurity, quit rugby, was broken up with and moved to Idaho. Went on all these adventures and then settled down back in Connecticut where I got really good at selling cybersecurity. I worked for a small startup and I was making $250,000 by the time I was 26. But, at the same time, I was doing great professionally, but personally I was going through some real mental illness and I didn't really know what was going on. I had like extreme paranoia. I would have manic episodes where I would just have unexplainable behavior. One anecdote I use is I was going across the street because I spilled a bottle of Sprite on my floor, and I bought 10 copies of the Boston Globe to clean it up instead of going one aisle next to it and grabbing the paper towels. When you're manic, you kind of don't really think about how to perform tasks well. Like I can't really make coffee when I'm manic. It kind of all came crashing down over COVID. I quit that job and I spent the next year reading 300 pages of literature per day, studying cryptocurrency. And, at the end of that year, I attempted suicide. I put a noose around my neck and, I kind of realized in the blink of an eye that my friend was getting married the next day. So I was like, I might as well stick around. At this point, I hadn't played rugby in 4.5 years, but I was invited to go to, a rugby birthday party. And, I was ashamed of myself. I hadn't worked in a year and I was coming off of a suicide attempt. But I conjured up the will to go. And, my friends there invite me to a rugby match the next week. It was a very exhibition game against New Haven. And their head coach was my former head coach at the college level. And so I went to go watch, and I'm standing alongside the coach's wife, and she's telling me I need to start playing again. And then an injury happens, and I end up on the field, first time in almost 5 years. And the first time I touched the ball, I assisted the game-winning score. So rugby came back into my life. I ended up getting a job as the head coach of the Eastern Connecticut State University women's rugby team. Led them to a conference championship. And then during that off season, I was trying to start a cryptocurrency company. Basically, it was a decentralized professional rugby team that was owned and operated by fans and players. And, if you had a certain level of NFT-backed accreditations for rugby, you had a certain amount of governing power when it came to setting lineups or rosters or stuff like that. And I went manic, and I went out to the largest cryptocurrency conference in North America, and I pitched it to all these successful venture capitalists, technologists, even Elon Musk's brother. And, like I said, I was manic during that time, which can actually be pretty useful for pitching your idea to venture capitalists because, when you're manic, you talk a million miles an hour, you think really fast, you have no sense of risk, you don't really care what other people think. So I did pretty well, in that setting. And when I went home, I thought I was about to change the world. I was having all these grandiose thoughts that were manic driven. And, I had no sense of risk. So I trusted this guy on the internet with my cryptocurrency wallet, and he stole $450,000 from me in minutes. And still manic. I went to coach the women's rugby team the next day. My behavior was out of place, and it was jarring to a lot of players. And, what I didn't know was that their former coach was trying to organize a coup to get his spot back. And so I ended up losing that job. My last game ever coaching was winning a conference championship, which I'm proud of. But, that sent me into a hole of suicidal depression. After 6 weeks, I went manic again, drove south, stopped in Nashville, played some rugby with my college roommate, and then got a job coaching Memphis inner city youth in the most dangerous neighborhood in America, Orange Mound. So I moved down there, and I was excited about my new job. But on my fourth day there, I suffered a massive panic attack, and I just started taking dozens and dozens of pills, all of my medication. And I was suffering from severe serotonin syndrome, so I had to get flown back home, stayed in the hospital for 3 days, and then, spent a month of just kind of lost, really suicidal. And eventually, I got into a mental health hospital, and that changed my life. That's where I was diagnosed with my illness. That's where I was prescribed lithium. And that's where I met a lot of inspiring people who were suffering and who didn't have a lot of the blessings that I have in my life. And they reminded me how fortunate I was. And, I took a lot from that experience. I didn't know how to really do anything about it. I wanted to speak up for all these people because they really don't have a voice in society, and the mentally ill are not treated well in society. So I got my life back together after that. I got a job at the largest cybersecurity company in the world. And I was working hard to get back on the rugby field. And then in the spring of 2024, I ruptured my patellar tendon, my second one, and I went manic. And, I just started typing on the notes app my life story. I had never thought about doing that before, but that mania turned out to be, a blessing in disguise at that point. So, I was hospitalized, but when I got out of the hospital, I had all this positive feedback from all these people in my life, old friends and stuff. And, that got me motivated to actually write a book. And so I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad that, I was willing to speak up. I'm proud of it. And, I think it's a good book.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest today, Tyler Kania. Go to his website, tylerkania.com. We're talking about his amazing book, and man, I had to stop there and say, what a story.
It's a long one, huh?
No, I'm just saying because so many so many points, twists and turns in your story. And for you to still be here today, to to share it and also discuss your book. I have to say, without going further, is that's truly remarkable, and that is powerful. That is not something that can be easily solved. So my next question for you would be, what was, because I understood what you said, that when you got help and finally got a diagnosis on what was going on with you, what was it like mentally for you to kind of just go through the motions of saying, okay, now I know what's going on with me? What was next for Tyler?
Yeah. Well, I had cycled through like 14 different medications before that, and some of them were really, didn't help and had traumatizing side effects that came with them. So I was skeptical at first when, I finally got this new medication, but I was really hopeful, and I remember thinking like, wow, I finally have a reason for why I'm behaving this way. Like, I got to tell all these people that I embarrassed myself in front of, what the cause of this was. Because I really did shatter a lot of relationships, and I left a lot of people wondering what was going on with me. I knew there was something, but I couldn't put the pin on it until they finally diagnosed me. And so that was a liberating feeling. It felt good to be able to put a name on the face of it.
And when you decided to make your book a reality, that's probably like the most interesting process to go through, because one, you had to make the chapters make sense, then two, you got to have the final editing process go through, and then three, you got to get it published. But don't stop there, you got to find a way to market it as well. So at what point did you say it was the right time for you to begin writing your book?
I didn't. It was that manic episode that drove me to it, and it was almost like divine intervention. Like, there was something that kept me on this planet so that I could share my story, because every single day I woke up and I knew exactly what to write. Like, I had tried to write before, but I would get writer's block. I worked on this book for 9 months, and not a single day did I, let the book stand. I always knew what to do to move forward. My rough draft was completed in under 2 months, which is really fast. It was a little messy because I published my first draft straight to Instagram on the Notes app. But, once I kind of sat down, once I got like my structural editor, who was huge, who got me to kind of think more introspectively, both for myself and for the people that I was putting in these situations. And it really just started to come together from there. I can't explain it. I kind of just intuitively knew how to write it.
You also have a work ethic that is crazy, because when you're sharing your story, reading all that literature that you were reading at some point of your time when you was in that dark season, that's a lot. A lot of people barely read 1 or 2 books in the summer. So what, or how I should say, do you believe your work ethic too has contributed to you making through those dark times?
Yeah, I think that like I was saying earlier, like when you're bipolar, you have to reinvent yourself. When you're bipolar, you have to work that much harder, because you know that, you have a good day today, but tomorrow might not be so bright. And so I've learned to really take advantage of my time while I have it, while I'm sane. And, as far as the reading goes, like, I didn't want to be in my world, so I traveled to other places, to other people's world. And it was a great escape from reality. I was reading morning till night, and it didn't feel like work. I mean, it did feel like, okay, well, if I don't have a job, I need to be doing something. But it was really where I just found a love for reading, because before that, I was the jock in the family. My brother was a great reader. He's a lawyer now, and, he used that. And, I'm thankful that he had a pretty large book collection for me to tap into, because I really took advantage of that.
For people who are watching us and listening to us, what is something that you wish more people would understand about living with a bipolar disorder?
Yeah, a few things. Number one, it's hard to diagnose a mental illness. And so, I'm trying here to educate people so that they can spot it easier in the real world, whether that's a friend or family member. As far as that person goes, you need to find a community to belong to. You need to have a goal, to keep you going. But, more than any of that, I think that people with mental illness have superpowers. You heard it with my book. You heard it with, all the different things that I've been through and that I, how hard I worked. We have a heightened level of creativity. We're more curious than other people. We have more empathy than other people. And when we're manic, we are powerful, for good, bad, or indifferent. We are go-getters when we're in those episodes, and no one's going to stop us. So for all the blessings that the mentally ill have, or for all the curses that the mentally ill have, there are those blessings. And I want people to know that they're fortunate, even if they have a mental illness.
Once again, listening to Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest today, Tyler Kania. Go to his website, tylerkania.com. Make sure you go get his book too, because like I said, it's something that this is almost, I know I say this a lot sometimes, but I don't say it all the time. But this is a story that I feel like, man, it can be a TV series or a movie, because with all those twists and turns, it's like, wow. That was on my bingo card. After sharing your story earlier, I'm like, oh, wow. All those twists and turns, but yet there's a common thread. And the common thread was that you didn't give up. You did not stop trying to find a way to get to the better side. Kind of touch on that for the audience, because maybe someone who's watching us or listening to us right now who might feel like they're stuck, or they may not like where they are right now.
Yeah.
What's the encouragement you can give to that person and say, you know what? Keep pressing.
No, I've been there, right? 2 suicide attempts, institutionalization, being ostracized from the workforce. I've been there. But, even I say this in my book, even on my darkest, most suicidal days, there was this tiny voice in my head that said, one day you could change the world, Tyler. And, that was powerful. And I don't know, I think it's almost luck that I'm still here, after everything that I went through. I don't go to many weddings. So to have a wedding be the day after I was trying to end it, that alone is something that I can't scoff at. But yeah, I always knew that I was special. And I think a lot of people that suffer like me feel the same way about themselves. And so it's just a matter of finding that thing. For me, you can take away my job, you can take away my paycheck, but who's going to take my pen away? Right? I can write no matter what anyone thinks, no matter what anyone says. And that gives me, an audience, that gives me a podium, so that I can scream from the mountaintops, this is how I've been treated, and this is what needs to be changed. So for me, I'm really thankful that I found that thing. But for other people, like I said, you got to find your community, you got to find your goals. And from there, you just got to find medication, that fits for you.
When you think about how choices play a role in where you started to where you are right now, how were you able to continue to navigate and make those crucial decisions they obviously have made a great positive impact on your life. But kind of explain a little bit, if you can, what was it like to make those crucial decisions at those times in order for you to make progress?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I'm not the greatest decision maker. I've made a lot of bad choices, both for myself personally and for my career. But one thing that I kept doing was, if I failed, I moved on, right? I lost my life savings. I lost my job as a coach. But I said, okay, let's move on. Let's try and find a new coaching job. And that didn't work out. But what it did was it brought me to where I finally got help. And that wasn't so much of a choice as a necessity. That was me giving up and saying, okay, the people in my life, I need you to make these decisions. And so sometimes those decisions that you make need to be a team move. You need to, lean on the people that are there for you and help them, especially when you're going through something where you're not in the right headspace to make those decisions at all. Like, it wasn't the best decision to have $450,000 in cryptocurrency or to trust it with, some random stranger. But it brought me to where I am here today, and I'm proud of who I am now. I'm proud of everything that I've become because I've become, the benefactor of a lot of mistakes. And that's brought me a level of maturity that I think a lot of people my age probably don't have.
You sound like an old, wise man. Like I'm here, and I think that is contributed to the way you made those tough decisions. I like what you said earlier about there comes a point in time where it's not just about making a decision, but it's also seeking help. And I think we sometimes live in a culture where it's despised sometimes when someone's seeking for help. And I think that's a good point to make. That's a good point to make, because if you don't have that ability to be vulnerable, then you can lose that window of opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say to what's next for Tyler? Because you're promoting your book, you got a lot of things going on for you. What would you say is the next thing that you want to explore or just pursue?
Yeah, I'm keeping busy with, promoting my book right now. I did a book reading at a library yesterday. I got a bunch more of those scheduled, a bunch more of these scheduled. I am working on a second book. It's a book of short essays, just one page each. And I think I've got about 82 essays so far, mostly about, suicide and addiction and mental illness, stuff like that. I want to keep kind of hammering home, breaking down that stigma, because I think it needs to happen. And besides that, like I'm starting a little side hustle called Extended Obituaries, where basically instead of your typical obituary, you tell someone's life story, you interview, 5 or 6 family members, friends, and you put together like an 8 to 10 page piece that, you can pass down on the coffee table to future generations, because I think a lot of our best stories, are lost with the people that pass away. So I want to tap into that. And then who knows, I might, writing for money is difficult. I might get back into cybersecurity if they let me. So we'll see. And then, still hoping to get back on the rugby field in the next year, dealing with rehab for my ruptured patellar tendon right now. But I want to give it another shot. And once that's over, I hope to coach again.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how about coaching? Because if I was in that sport, I would love someone like you to be a coach, because I don't know about the audience, but I'll be highly motivated to not play at a low level, because how could you if you had a coach who's been through what you've been through? I think whoever you're going to be coaching, they're going to be winning championships.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was proud of the community that I built at Eastern, and I did teach a lot of life lessons. It's tough because you don't want to let your players know too much about you personally. But now it's a book, so they can go out and read it anyways. It doesn't matter, I guess.
Well, once again, you've been watching us online and listening to our Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Tyler Kania. Go to his website, tylerkania.com, and get a copy of his book. But, man, like always, we're going to have to have you back on, man, because if you do end up coaching again, love to document and check in on what you're doing. But like always, man, I want to say to you, thank you for your time, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you. This has been great. Appreciate it.